Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of 100 Days and Beyond. And Rob and I always have a have a great laugh together. And this is Robin's second episode with us today, and we're going through. Although it's 100 Days and Beyond, I think today's episode is really special for me. I spent time reading the Bumpy Road to Success, which is Robin's book on his life and his life story and his journey. And I found it absolutely fascinating, but also probably one of the most revealing biography type books that I've read, because it really cuts to the real core of being an entrepreneur. I could resonate quite seriously with a lot of the things that you spoke about. So, Robin, welcome. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to chat to you about your book. But welcome, and please say hello to everyone on the,
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me back. I mean, I can't have done that badly last time, otherwise we wouldn't be talking today. No, it's
Yeah. So the last time we spoke was about more about sort of the M&A side of things and some of the acquisitions. And in your book, however, you bring out a lot more detail and some of the key things that you learned in that space. But I just want to sort of just point to the book quickly. So it's called The Bumpy Road to Success, an entrepreneur's tech startup journey. And when we talk about tech, coming back from the 1980s, tech is completely different today, what people understand about tech. But I mean, what I found absolutely fascinating was your account of the growth of the tech industry. I thought that was fascinating, of all the way down to the initial, those lumpy pieces of mixture of plastic and motherboardy stuff and floppy disks and drives, and it was quite a really good account. And then as you grew and moved into training and that sort of thing. So today we're covering the bumpy road to success, and I think any entrepreneur that's honest with themselves, every entrepreneur's journey is bumpy. If it's not bumpy, then there's something seriously wrong. I don't know what you think about my introduction, but tell us a little bit about the book. Why did you do it? I'm going to touch on a few points within the book, which I find fascinating, but just give us a flavor of why and why now.
That's a very good, thank you. It's a very good introduction. So thank you. When I wanted to write, I wanted to write a book, but I'm not an author. So I thought I'd just I just document my history for my family because they don't know what I do much of the time. Not really interested. I don't say that meanly, but they're getting on with their lives. So then I met somebody who said, listen, what you told me, you should really be writing this book for entrepreneurs because you've had a lot of first-hand experience and the lessons you've learned could be useful. So I kind of changed the whole direction of it. Can I just show the picture, or do you want to show the picture? Do you have it in hand? Otherwise, I have it here.
Please show. No problem.
The story. So this picture is entitled Artificial Intelligence, and this was one of a series of prints by a guy called Robert Tinney, who actually sold his prints, sold the right to, at the time, PC Magazine, to print them as front covers for their magazines. And I thought they were so great that I bought a whole bunch and hung them on the walls of our office. So going through the ups and downs, the bumpy road, company got sold, pictures disappeared. Then the company that bought, quick story, the company that bought us went bust, so I managed to recover some of the pictures, and today, this is the only picture I have left. I contacted the author, which was very difficult. He's somewhere in America, and I got authorization to use it for this book and this book alone. So there's the history of the look of the book. But and actually, if you look at it, we were using this kind of paper with dot matrix printers. Anyhow, I got into this whole thing because I was looking for something to do. I was working in banking, and I wasn't totally enjoying it. And so I went to see a headhunting friend of mine who said, get into word processing. And I never heard of word processing. And he said, it's the future. So we started a business. I hired the people, I found the office, I got the equipment, and then we went and looked for business. And business was very slow coming. And within months, we'd run out of cash. So that was my first experience.
Yeah, I love that part, because it's probably mistake 101 of a new new business, of a new owner, new entrepreneur.
And I'm a qualified accountant, so it doesn't say much for the qualification. Anyhow,
but I thought that was brilliant, because I think it's a great example of the enthusiasm. I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I know there's something in there. I'm going to just set things up because it makes me feel good. It makes me feel confident that I can actually go out, because sometimes I think when you start and you haven't got a bit of a base, a bit of an office, a bit of an identity, if you like, and then you go and try and sell yourself or sell your services and you haven't actually done anything to create it, it becomes pretty damn difficult. So I think it's that conundrum when you start out, especially new.
I would never do it again. And I have a friend who was originally a working relation, who became a friend, who's based in Canada, who told me I had to read this book, Ready, Fire, Aim. And that's really one of the lessons I learned. Ready, fire, and then aim. Because if you ready, aim, and then fire, by that time you run out of cash.
Well, all the markets moved on. I've seen. I mean, it's one of the people that I got involved in and I helped them grow their business was the guy had spent a few years developing software, and then he couldn't find customers. Then he picked up the phone and said, Dudley, can you help me find some customers? And I'm saying, okay, where are you looking? And like, what's your value proposition? He says, I don't know, but I've got a really good software. So I helped them get two major clients, and they were targeting entirely the wrong people. They were go-to-market was completely wrong. And today I own a nice slice of a really decent tech business, which the guys had done exactly that. They'd gone and they'd created this wonderful software. Didn't find a customer for a few years. I think he sunk almost 5 million into it. Oh my God. It was almost his life savings. So you can imagine.
Well, I'll leapfrog forward because I just want to use that example, and then I want to go back to the Apple days because that was fun. So leapfrogging forward to building a product for which you don't have customers. We used to buy courseware from a guy who had a company called the Courseware Company. He used to approach trainers because he was in the training business and say, submit your courses to me and I'll find the best, and then I'll brand them as the Courseware Company, and each time we sell them for a class, you'll get a royalty. Great business. We used to use him. It was we used to use him for office-based materials, soft skills, etc. Well, mainly IT office-based. Anyhow, long story short, he saw the millennium, the year 2000 coming. Everybody was certain that there was going to be a major crash around the world. All the computers would stop working at midnight in respective countries on the 31st of December, 1999. So he decided he'd write some courseware to help people with this situation. So
they call it the Millennium Bug.
Millennium Bug. Exactly. So he took his eye off the ball because he had a very good business and wrote this courseware. Of course, the millennium came and went, 31st December, 1st January, no bug. He got all this courseware, taking his eye off the ball. The business now is not generating any income. He was forced to sell it. So exactly your example. And we ended up buying it, but first time round, he sold it to somebody who never paid. And then we got it, and then we owned the Courseware Company, and that's history. But going back to, so So after my first effort had not been successful, I called in. I asked one of my university friends who I'd been sharing with in my last year. We got on very well. I said, "Look, do you want to come and help?" He was not enjoying his job, so he came to help, and we decided to start selling microcomputers, as they were called. But people didn't really have microcomputers. It was new. And we thought, what can we sell? And we looked around the market, and we decided, okay, we're going to sell Adda, because Adda was a great name in typewriters, and that's what basically people use, typewriters. So we ordered this 30 computers, which were delivered to us in a big pile of boxes in our office, and we started trying to sell them. When people asked us to demonstrate them, they never worked. So there we were trying to get these computers to work. We didn't even know the operating system. They didn't have any kind of recognizable operating system. So Adler's accounting department started to ring us up to tell us we owed them £30,000, and we hadn't made any sales. So after 3 months, we just said, "Look, they don't work. Can we return them?" And to our amazing luck, they just took them back, cancelled the invoice, and then we had this connection with a guy who was the editor of the Sunday Telegraph magazine, who was very academic. And he said, "Look, you really have to buy this computer called an Apple." And we said, "It can't be serious." And he said, "I'll bring it around and show you." And well, I don't know how he brought it around, because it was different pieces. But anyway, he brought this thing around and showed us. And it looked pretty good. It was a plastic box. It had a lovely rainbow color apple in the box, in the lid, and he said, "This is what people are going to want, and it's going very well in the States." So nobody was selling really. Apple didn't exist in the UK. They had a distributor, and so we got into our. You have to stop me soon, because otherwise I'll talk forever.
No. I'm loving it, because it's just reminding me of the book.
Go for it. Adler's gone. Let's go for Apple. So we got into our really pretty ancient Volkswagen Passat, and we drove off.
I love the coming back to sort of getting into your VW Passat and actually.
Yeah, so we drove up the motorway to Hemel Hempstead, where there was something called Micro, and I actually got to remind myself of the name, but it was where the distributors were. And to write this book, I really had to do a lot of, because it goes back 40 years.
Oh, this is the 1980s. So I mean, this is some serious time back. So and these were the early days as well, because a lot of these names I just got flashbacks from that time, the devices that were floating around, and the ones that didn't work anymore, and the piles in the storerooms of PCs or microcomputers that were no longer in use.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But actually, if one's wives allowed us to collect them, they'd be lovely sort of showpieces. But so we got to Hemel Hempstead. And the company was called Microsense, and they had the exclusive distributorship for Apple. And the deal was, you went in there, you gave them a check for £3,000, and you got 2 Apple units. Complete.
Which is a lot of money. It was a lot of money.
Complete with a horrible dot matrix printer, a pretty poor resolution monitor, 2 floppy disk drives. Anyway, so we arrived just behind a Rolls Royce, and the Rolls Royce glided in the car park, and the guy got out in a dark suit with a lovely burgundy colored briefcase and walked into this rather impressive hall or lobby, and we sat down. He went in, and then he came out with all these boxes, put them in the boot of his Rolls Royce, and drove off. So clearly he was going to be a competitor. We went in, grabbed all these boxes, gave them the check, and drove all the way back to Victoria, to Pimlico. Unpacked them with excitement, and then with between my partner Tom Margerison, who was the guy who put us onto Apple, who then became our non-executive chairman, unpaid, wonderful mentor, because he was reliving his excitement through us. I think we started to sell these computers, and we advertised them on Capital Radio, LBC. We put them in all the magazines. We spent a fortune.
I think I remember the ad as something like, "How much does an apple cost?" Was $4.99.
How much is an apple? Exactly, and there was a green apple.
Yeah. How much is it?
And what we did, the way we managed to do this was because we quickly realized you could buy much better quality monitors, better printers. We managed to manufacture our own interface cards, which connected to all the devices. And as a result, our cost per item was much cheaper than the cost per item to all the other Apple dealers who didn't think out of the box, just went and bought the stuff from Apple. So they were getting a straight 30%. We were making about 50%. So we used to sell the box, say how much for an Apple, and we were doing fantastically well. So we were basically the biggest retailer in the UK, and we actually, and Apple didn't really like it because all the dealers were ringing up and saying this isn't fair. So Apple
ended up in a court case that dragged on and on and on.
We won the prize. We won the prizes.
That's right. You won the prize.
Yeah, we were invited to Cloisters to go for a skiing weekend, but they weren't too pleased. But we, the figures said that we were doing well. So out we went to Cloisters, and that's where Anyway, in the book there's a joke about my partner. Being a little bit rude.
Two steaks. You can't.
Two steaks. Yeah, I'll leave that for anybody who wants to read the book. But anyhow, we came back, and when we came back, Apple cut us off, and it transpires that the dealers have said you can't allow them to sell for less than the cost price. But of course, the cost price to us was less than the dealers knew. So Apple cut us off, which was illegal because it was resale price maintenance.
Well, it's a price thing, isn't it? You can't do that.
Can't do that. At the time, and it took us 3 years to get our money back from Apple, and in the meantime we lost all our market speed. So anyway, that was and I'd say one other thing to talk about that business is that I made a terrible mistake. Well, my partner then met somebody who lived overseas, went to live with them, left the business, and it was difficult for me because he added a lot to the part. I think we worked well as a partnership. And I made a terrible mistake because after the Apple debacle, although we then went into selling IBM, and that was great, but we'd lost our market dominance. We were no longer top of the PC type market.
Well, you've lost momentum. I mean, that whole thing just stopped you completely.
But we didn't go bust though.
No, fair enough. But I mean, because you're entrepreneurial, so you're going to keep on keeping on. So it's not. But one thing that I saw across the entire journey that you had was you constantly had these external things that would come in and would throw curveballs. Yeah, things that were not, you couldn't control, things that just happened. I mean, one thing that you did maintain was good relationships with your employees, with your staff. You relied heavily on them. You had partners that helped you through tough times. You also had, I think, one partner that didn't quite work out, but there was this constant theme of getting curveballs, and every time you work a way around it. And I think any entrepreneur would know that I remember somebody say, God laughs when people make plans, or while people are making plans, or something like that. And it's pretty much like that. It's like you think this is the way forward, and then next thing there's something else that's in the way, which I thought was fascinating.
Absolutely.
If I could read just one thing at the beginning of the book. You mentioned something that I thought I'd just mention because I think it's critical for anybody wanting to read the book. And that is, in this book, I've written a completely frank account of my experiences without dressing them up. As such, I have received feedback that I focus too much on the negatives and not on the positives. I have done this so that the readers can see what it was like for me at the coalface. I hope that this book will share some of the stress that many entrepreneurs experience along their journey, and to show that they are not alone. And I think what I've picked up, that what makes this book so uniquely different to a lot of books that I've read, is that you really truly show the real stuff that happens as a let's call it an owner operator business, driving, doing your things, getting partners on board, building out, trying to expand globally, being pulled back, knowing that when you're stretching yourself too thin, which I've done as well, we all do it. We all get sort of a little more ambitious than we should, and or a little bit more expansive than we should. Let's say there's nothing wrong with ambition, but a bit more too. We think it's the same. You can sort of just plug and play everywhere. I just constantly there's this theme going through, and then sometimes the main partner that you rely on, like your vendors that like the licensing and the people that did the examinations and in the course material, they just decide one day, sorry for you, Robin, and then that's another curveball. Then you got to say, oh shoot, I better go and do something. So I just want you to throw that in there and then just get your reaction on that.
Yeah, well, I think even today, because you hope that as you run your business, or in my case, as I've run my businesses, you learn from the mistakes, and I've documented the mistakes. And I'm running a new business, Barefoot e-learning, and I'm making mistakes, or I'm being faced with curveballs again. So it doesn't change. It does not change. But yeah, you mentioned that. So we had this great relationship with a company in Utah, and they developed a product which has now been acquired by the company that acquired our last business only recently. They acquired them. But they used to have a product where you would have a tutorial on video, and then you'd go in and they had this fantastic lab simulation. So, for example, if you're learning about network support, you'd have a lecture on a module. Then you'd be faced with the computers in the graphic and everything, and you were told to connect this network together. There's a fault. And you go through the lab simulation, and it would tell you where you're going wrong. And then you finish the lab, and if you couldn't do it, it would show you how to do it, which was very advanced. And then at the end of it, you then get a test. And this was from this company in Utah, and we decided to call it Learn, Practice, and Test. And we included this with our courseware because we were selling courseware to prepare technicians for certifications in the IT industry. And this was fantastic, and it really gave us a great entry into both academic and into business, and we generated some really good relationships, and we had a reseller agreement with these guys, and we sold this everywhere except in the US because it was US product, and we weren't allowed to sell in that country. Anyway, we worked with them for 7 years, and we were we must have sold well over £1 million worth of their products. And bearing in mind that each student product would be it start off being a printed book and the lab simulations on a CD, and it ended up being online learning license or ebook and online license for the lab, and each student was paying around about, I'd say, between $100 and $200 maximum. So £1 million is quite a lot of sales. And then the CEO came over to the UK. I'd been over to Utah several times and met there. He came over to the UK for an event, and we invited him to our office. And he came over and he said, Robin, I like you. But we've decided we want to sell direct, so we're not going to let you sell our product anymore. And that was expected always, because you should never put too much of an emphasis with one company. But there was the business opportunity. We worked around it. We'd advertised. We'd done 7 years worth of business. And all of a sudden, we had to replace the online learning. We had to replace the lab simulations, and we had to replace the tests. And that was a huge exercise. And we did manage to do it. And we managed to do it successfully, in my opinion. But we lost some of the customers who didn't want to give up that product. So what happened was they stayed with the American company, And in South Africa, we had a very strong market in South Africa and some big customers there who were buying this product. And he said, well, look, I'll deal directly with your agents. Well, they were at the time, they weren't employed, but they were our agents. And there was nothing we could do about it. You know, there were the agents we'd worked with for 10, 15 years, you know, who were under our brand. And all of a sudden, we were cut out. So, yeah, curveball.
and it was, and even, you know, just, I think even the way you put it in the book, it's sort of, I think you said he put his hand on your shoulder and he said, I like you, but.
That's true. Anyway, he said because he just sold his business. And so.
Well, I mean, it's just, it's crazy. And then what I liked as well, were some of the little snippets of things that you remembered. The one with the cork and the 50p coin in it. And
yeah, what happened was I had this intern, and we were setting up the new business, which was the business number 3, and we moved into our new offices, and we decided that we'd. And I had this intern, and we opened a bottle of champagne and said, "Here's to our future." And he said, I'll have the cork. And then he gave it back to me with a 50p piece stuck in it. And I said, what's that for? He said, it's to bring you good luck. Well, 18 years later, we sold the business. We didn't try. We weren't trying, actually. We were approached because there's a lot that goes on in between.
Yes, of course.
and then I got in touch with him, and he came over. He's now working for an investment bank in Hong Kong. And he came over and we had lunch together. This was literally about 3 months ago, and I gave him back the cork with the 50p piece.
Wow. There's another one where I think your pen. I just don't know if you ever found it, and I think it's still.
I've got an old fountain pen here. It was a Waterman. It was a black one. So what we were doing at the time was we were negotiating to buy a company called Microcomputer Unit from some very nice people who we'd partnered with on the training business. This was in computer training, and the CEO was an American lady called Janet Grant, and she had an office in Blackfriars. So I went over to Blackfriars, and we were signing the contract effectively, and to buy this business, which we then integrated into our. It was a technical training business, which Janet's training conference business had decided was not particularly. It just didn't work very well, so they didn't want to keep it on. They wanted to focus. So that was perfect for us. We wanted that business because we get more clients. And it was the ideal clients that we needed, technical training. So I went over there to sign the contract, and I was using one of my favorite black Waterman fountain pen. Signed the deal, couldn't find the pen, never found the pen. Very upset.
You still can't get over it.
No, I can't get over it.
I just love that. It's those moments, isn't it, that you remember those little things along the way.
There's things I remember that I haven't put in the book, which I regret. But you can't put everything in. And actually, I should make a list of them. But I will start making a list of them. There are lots of other. But once you've written the book, the thing is, when I sat down to write the book, I just did it in one as tight a period as possible. I think within 3 months, and then I spent about 3 months trying to get it uploaded to Amazon because it was complicated. Also, I wanted to get it edited. So I think we've done a reasonably good job of editing it, but the main thing was uploading it. But you can't remember everything.
No, you can't.
Hopefully, it's got enough entertainment in it.
No, it's got a lot, and as I said, I resonate quite a lot with it because it's never as plain sailing, because you could be jetting around the world like you did, going from one hotel to the next, one city to the next, one airline to the next. But I like the little stories, things like on Qantas, where the air hostess, you wanted to hang your jacket, and she didn't She said, but you should have got your boss to buy you a different ticket if you wanted to hang your jacket. I thought,
I was just about to go on a 15-hour trip, and the cupboard was empty, and I had a jacket, and I thought, well, I got to wear it when I get to the other end. And she said, yeah, get your boss to buy you. But I have another story that I think you also probably enjoyed. I was in India, and I was flying from, I can't remember exactly, Delhi to Kolkata, whatever. And I thought, well, I'd fly this airline. Okay, I've got to find it. I remembered all these things, but it's quite difficult on the spot. But anyway, and there's a picture of the airline with the air hostess and everything. So yeah, it was called Kingfisher Airlines, and the guy who was running Kingfisher was a great admirer of Richard Branson. So his planes were the same color. His staff cabin crew all wore red. So we got on board, and I was flying coach, but they brought you around a drink, and they brought you around stuff to eat while you were waiting, and you had a television. And I was thinking, how the heck does this airline give you such, give you club class service at coach prices? Anyway, we sat in the airplane for a rather long time. So after a while, I thought, what is going on? So I switched on the TV, and you could get radio. You could get television, local television. So I got the local television, and they said, and we got onto the news, and it said there's a dispute between Kingfisher Airlines and the oil company, and I'm sitting in the Kingfisher Airline plane, and and they said yes, because unfortunately Kingfisher is unable to pay for its jet fuel, and there's a big dispute, and that minute. The captain came on and said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to advise you that we've got an unexpected delay, a technical delay. We're trying to resolve it at the moment. We should be off soon. I'll keep you posted. So clearly they weren't allowing the plane to fly because they hadn't paid the bill. Anyway, we did finally leave, but then the company went bust. Sad, but you can't deliver. You can't deliver luxury items at.
Yeah, but I suppose they try to differentiate, and I think as even any entrepreneur, you try and over deliver. You try and really look after your clients. And there are times when you got to be really careful. So there's this nice balance between sort of what's the price point versus the amount of service you can deliver at scale that makes it. And an airline. Those are tough businesses. I mean, that's a lot tougher than microcomputers and training, I think. How many airlines have gone belly up? I wanted to just also touch on how one other thing that because I've also been in the tech space for a very, very long time now as well, and I think. What was quite noticeable is as your businesses are developing, this entire industry is developing too. So you've got from the 1980s with the microcomputers, then people needed training. So you went into that. You went into training needed to become more professional. Then it went into certifications. Then you got these certification organizations, and then the IP things come up. Then it becomes intellectual property and copyright protection. There's plagiarism all over the place. I remember those days. I mean, it was so easy, not just to copy training material, but people were stealing software. They were taking things from everywhere, and it was literally the Wild West. Those early days. Now things have obviously settled down. They've built in security and things like that. And there's obviously with now e-learning, you can to a certain extent. And I see Netflix on the news last night is they've got a problem where people are sharing logins and passwords, and they're losing I don't know how much revenue. They don't even know because people are literally sharing their subscription with X amount of people per person. I think it just hasn't stopped, has it? And it doesn't matter what company you're in. And I was just going through your story in terms of how do you protect your IP, how do you get printers to print? Because those days, I think you said the manuals that you had were something like 1,200 pages. I don't know, something, it was, they were huge. One manual, and you couldn't, it was too expensive to ship them, so you had to get local printers, and that already started exposing you. I mean, just in that Wild West, even as the industry is changing, how you need to adapt and rapidly adapt. And I think that if it was a static industry, perfect. It was like farming, it was like, I've got cows and I milk them. I've got wheat and I harvest. It's like that. That's it. This is a product that's changing
even today. I mean, there are big risks with, for example, I mean, I'll go through. I'd like to talk about the printing actually, with our new business, Barefoot e-learning, because we're offering online. We're offering online learning. A lot of people say they'd like that they have their own platform and they want SCORM files. And as soon as you give them SCORM files, it's very difficult to control them. How do you know how many people are using those files and what happens at the end of the annual license? Going back to what you were talking about, it was a massively risky business where we lost a lot of money. We created all this very complex, well, very detailed, should I say, courseware. It then needed to be approved after the course approval process came into play. So we were doing mainly, this is with GTS Learning, we were doing CompTIA, we were developing CompTIA courseware for the CompTIA certifications. CompTIA is the Computing Technology Industry Association based in Chicago, and it develops exams for workforce development in areas, typically technical areas like PC support, network support, cybersecurity, data, etc. Anyhow, we were developing this content. It then had to be approved annually, or I think it was annually. And then we needed to ship it. So as you say, one course, A+, had 2 exams, and each exam contained 6, each of our courses, and we didn't do the exams, did the courses to prepare for the exams, was 600 pages. So we had volume 1 and volume 2, 300. And then the second exam, volume 1, volume 2, 300, so 600 in total. So if we had a class, if we did an accelerated course, we had a client doing an accelerated course, because our clients were typically training businesses. They'd order, say they had 12 students, so they'd order 12 A+ kits, and the kits arrived, so they were 12,000 pages basically, 4 books per student. How you can ship that in the UK, and we typically, the client would ring up and say, I've got a course, today's Friday, can I have it for Monday, or Thursday for Monday? So they'd expect them to be there on Monday morning. They'd be opening boxes, taking off the cellophane and putting them on the students' desks. You couldn't do that overseas. It's far too expensive, so we had to find overseas printers. Now, there's another story with overseas, which I might address, which is translational. But at the moment, we're talking about English language. So that would be typically, it would be the US, it would be South Africa, it would be Australia, and maybe some parts of Europe, but mainly the UK. And therefore, we had to find printers who we could trust. And this was very difficult. And very often, we found that the books kind of got sold without our knowledge. The printers would print the books. This happened to us, I think, in Australia. Definitely, I think it also happened, well, South Africa also. And we ended up with the right partners eventually, but it was an expensive road to get to the right partners. And we definitely got intellectual property being stolen. Now, and just about other countries, I'd like to say, so when I first started that particular business, I thought, right, I'm out of the training business. We were delivering training at Barefoot Computer Training. I'm into the content delivery business. What I want to do now is go global. So exciting, we're going to have an international business. I really wanted an international business. So we'll go to France, Italy, Spain, Germany, Netherlands, Scandinavia, Australia. We even went to Malaysia. We were trying
I think
to get
you
into.
tried China as well. I think
we tried to do China. The disasters were China, Japan, and Thailand. That's another story. So we can't tell everything, otherwise nobody will buy the book. But I remember going to a trade conference in Puerto Rico, and the time Prometric, one of the testing organizations, was there. I knew the people. I said, "Can I share your booth and put my books on your table?" And they said, "Yes, that's fine." And then one of the guys came up to me, who's now working for Pearson, who I've got on with very well over the years, and he said, and I said proudly to him, we're in all these countries, we're translating into Spanish, French. He looked at me and said, "You must be off your head." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "But there's no business in these countries." And he was absolutely right. The French will only do it if it's made in France. The Spanish, there are different versions of Spanish too. So you can't really translate. Plus, CompTIA is getting no exams, selling no exams in these countries. And of course, if they're selling no exams, why would anybody buy the books to study? The Netherlands, we were never very successful. Germany, we were successful, but it was so expensive. By the time we translated, paid the agent the decent fee, and the competition from Germany was very tough. And you then get the book publishers, like Macmillan's, who will sell in those countries and at prices you just can't compete with. So yes, I learned the language. If you're going to go global in your own home language.
Yes, yeah, and it's very difficult. I think grass does seem greener sometimes, and it's not. It's very seldom the case. But yes, when you go global, you've got a whole lot of things. One of the things that the takeaways for me, and for me, I don't think, even if we share a lot of the things within the book right now, but there are really solid golden nuggets when it comes to your different business practices. Things you had learned in terms of clauses when you had sold business, when you had bought business, when you bringing in advisors, and even working with advisors. So as in the fees you would pay them, like the lawyer, the financial advisor, every time you did a deal, and then bringing the right people in at the right fees and with the right clauses. And also there's one, I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger, if you like, but that's that one clause with the bank that you had signed at the I think it was a Midland Bank, and that I never, that I've not actually realized that until I read that paragraph. There is a serious difference between those two clauses about when you either sign away your personal guarantee or you sign away. And I want to leave that as a cliffhanger. But I think anybody reading the book would actually, I think, if they really go through it properly, there's an underlying set of, I'd say, core lessons that are just as relevant today, and probably more relevant today than any other time. But it just becomes reinforced, I think, that there are things that just don't change. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And it just is like that. And I thought that's incredibly valuable. There are little snippets of advice along the way that I think are critical takeaways. I don't know if you want to share one or two, but I mean that's what I thought was great out of the book.
Well, the guarantee was absolutely terrible because we were. Shall I tell that story?
Yeah. Why not tell it?
So we were working in Southwark, and we had a training center, and then TfL decided that they were going to shut down one of the only two tube lines which came to our offices, and so we decided, right, we don't have any money, enough money to move, but we have no choice, because we've got to keep this business going. We've built it up. It's running. It's okay.
Because they shut the Bakerloo line for a year.
They shut the Bakerloo line, exactly. And the only other line at the time which came near us was the Northern Line, which was not at the time a very popular line, even isn't terribly popular today. So we went. I went and spoke to our legal property guy who'd helped us previously move from Pimlico to Southwark, and well, firstly, actually, I had to find a new location, and I had a very good friend who ran an agency, a property agency business, just specializing in the city for businesses, and he found this fantastic property in Paul Street, on the corner of Paul Street and Tabernacle Street, a top floor of a building called BT Building, and it was a BT. It belonged to BT. They vacated it. And it was something like 12,000, 14,000 square feet on one floor, which was absolutely fantastic. So once we found the property, we then needed to refurbish it, and we needed and that was going to cost us. This was in 1996, I think it was. This was going to cost us £200,000.
It's a lot of money. A lot of money.
But we were convinced that it was going to be a success. So. We then needed the money. I went to see the property lawyer. He introduced me to a contact of his at the Midland Bank. And then the guy said, look, I've got no problem lending you this money, but you'll need to sign a personal guarantee on your house. Are you happy to do that? And I said, yes. And I told my wife, and she said no. But anyway, we came to an agreement, and we went down one rainy morning to my lawyer's offices in Blackfriars, where we signed the contract, and then we refurbished, and then we moved, and then the business was incredibly popular, and people loved it. One guy walked into the office who was a competitor of ours, running a company called Wave Technologies, and he walked in and he said, "I love this office. Can I buy your business?" And that was his reaction when he came in. So we enjoyed it, and then we did sell the business eventually to a NASDAQ company, and paid off the bank, closed the accounts, and went off happily. Well, relatively happily, because there's a story connected to the NASDAQ sale, which is different. But anyhow, it's in the book. Years later, I was running the new business, GTS Learning, and we were borrowing a bit too much money, but I never signed a guarantee. I'd opened a new account. It was with HSBC. Midland Bank was passé. And then one day, and then we ran into terrible trouble with a government contract. The government suddenly cancelled the contract, and our overdraft went up by 180,000 overnight. It was already at about 200,000. So the bank, needless to say, called me in, and I went in to see them. I felt a bit like going to school.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
I sat there. It's just not the sort of thing you like doing. And the guy said, he said, well, listen, you're going to have to give me a plan, or we're going to repossess your house. I said, no chance. I haven't signed a guarantee. He said, yes, you have. I said, no, I haven't. And he picked up this yellowing paper, which was all a bit crumpled. And it said Midland Bank at the top. And I said, listen, I paid it off years ago. He said, no, you didn't. This is an all monies guarantee. I said, what's that? He said, it follows you everywhere.
Unbelievable. That comes back to home.
I was told I was signing guarantee. I wasn't told that there are different guarantees. So instead of signing guarantee on the property, which I then paid off the account and the guarantee was cancelled, I didn't think to ask the bank to send me a letter saying your guarantee has been cancelled. I should have done. Instead, what happened was they had this all monies guarantee. So it meant that whatever I borrowed from the HSBC in the future was guaranteed on the house. I had no idea.
It is. I mean, these are the nuggets that come out in your book. I mean, I think you call it. What did you had there was a term you used which I thought was quite good. It'll come back to me. I want to maybe use this opportunity, because we're coming close to the end of the hour now, and maybe just sort of before we do that, there's this one story. I was laughing. You went glamping in South Africa,
Yeah.
to the Kruger Park, and you were on your way, and apparently somebody who was with you got locked up in locked himself in a. Just quickly go through that one. I thought that was pretty.
We were going down. So what happened was that we decided that we'd with our guys in South Africa, we decided we'd take the US company who were doing this lab simulation software. We decided we'd take them for a nice trip in South Africa, because they came over. We did a presentation in Johannesburg. And then after that, we thought, well, we'll take them for a nice weekend. So we traveled down, and it was quite a long way from Joburg, and we did it in the car, in a van, truck kind of thing. And at one point, we stopped. I remember we bought some beef jerky and stuff, and we were just literally drinking in cans and eating in the car. And one of the guys said, "I'll just use the loo." And we were waiting in the van, and then I don't know, we just closed the door and drove off. And then his partner said, "Listen, we haven't got Doug with us." And so Craig, who was driving, said, "Oh, I better go back and see what's going on." Went back, couldn't find him anywhere. And then we heard this thumping noise. And what happened was he'd gone to the loo, but the handle had fallen off, and he was stuck in the loo and couldn't get out. So we managed to so we went down to the Kruger Park, and we had a very good time there for 2 days. And then the guy who was hosting the camp said, "Do you mind if I hitch a lift from you to go back to Joburg?" And Craig, being polite, said, "Sure, that should be okay." There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, and we should be able to get a 6th. And he said, "Do you mind if I bring my generator?" We said, "What?" "Well, I've got a problem with the generator. I need to get it back to town." So Craig said, "Oh, okay, so long as it doesn't spill oil on my car." So we loaded this very dirty generator into the boot, trying to keep his car relatively clean. We got in the car, and all the way back, this guy didn't stop talking, and we couldn't wait to get him and his generator out of the car when we got to Johannesburg.
And then I'm going to leave it as another cliffhanger, because you even were I think you involved in a robbery where not you came in and they were busy robbing you. They were busy carrying your microcomputers out of the building.
Yeah, that was our first business, CWP Computers. I just invoiced because we had a maintenance business, and I just invoiced all our clients, and I was going on holiday the next day. So I just needed to make sure that all our contracts expiring were invoiced. So I stayed late, and then I went home. I was unmarried at the time. I just got myself to bed thinking, well, tomorrow I'm off on holiday to Portugal. That'll be fun. And then, I don't know what time, in the middle of the night, the police rang, said, "Alarm's gone off in your office. And we've checked it out. It's all fine, but can you please come and stop the alarm?" So we were in a building which was actually an old light industrial building. So it was on 4 floors. It had an old goods lift with double, doors that you opened and closed, and then the lift would judder and slowly go up. And I drove through the empty streets of London in the middle of the night, and we were in an office which was next to Rochester Row. And for anybody who knows London, there's a police station called the Rochester Row Police Station, which features in novels and things. And anyway, it's in Rochester Row. So it was about 250 yards away from our office, just around the corner and up the road. Anyway, so I got there, and sure enough, the lights were on, and no sign of anything. And so I went in, I switched off the alarm, got into the goods lift, and shuddered my way up to the 4th floor, opened the doors, manual doors. And there were 2 guys ransacking the place. And I realized that what could I do? I couldn't get back in the lift and press the button, because it would be about 3 minutes before the lift started moving. And I couldn't run down the stairs because they could chase me. So I said, "Hi guys, what are you doing?" And they said, "Who are you?" So I said, "I'm from the police." And I was wearing a red pullover and blue jeans. So, I must have been special forces. Anyway, So they said, so are we. So I said, oh, well, okay, fine. There must be a misunderstanding. So they said, well, what do you mean? So I said, well, I've got to tell the guys downstairs. There wasn't anybody downstairs. But anyway, I said, you know, your brain goes into overdrive and whatever comes out, comes out. And I said, well, I better tell the guys downstairs, because we came over because we were told that we needed to check the building. But if you're already here, there's just a misunderstanding. So they said, well, we'll come with you. Well, you know, this was the 80s. Today, I'd be dead. But then, so I walked down the stairs, and as I went floor 3, floor 2, floor 1, there were black bags full of our kit on every floor. I mean, like big, you know, black bags they brought with them, and they put our stuff in. There must have been about 20 of us working there. We had an engineering floor, we had a training floor, an admin floor, and sales. So I said, gosh, whoever's been here has been busy. And anyway, I'm in front of them. They're coming down behind me. And then we get to the ground floor. And I opened the door and they said, so where are the police? I said, they're waiting. They must be having a cigarette around the corner. And I walked out and then I ran as fast as I could, round the corner, down the road to the Rochester Road police station, rushed in to tell them that these guys were, you know, burglaring our office. The trouble is that I'd run so fast I had no breath. So I was standing in front of the counter. And the policeman was saying, well, can I help you? And I couldn't breathe.
Well, it must be the adrenaline too. I mean, it's not just...
Yeah. Anyway, by the time I told them there was something wrong, they were fantastic. They quickly scrambled the car. I got in the car. We came up. We just saw this old mustard-colored Morris Marina, an old car driving off. And we caught the guys, and they asked me to identify them. And I was pretty nervous about identifying them, so I thought they might. But anyway, yes. So we caught them. But the thing is, nowadays, I mean, the lesson learned was never go to an alarm call out on your own. Go with a policeman. Even then, it's dangerous. Yeah, and that's a lesson. And today, everybody carries a knife, so the chances of surviving that would have been pretty slim.
Yeah, it's a little tougher in South Africa, but it is crime is everywhere. No,
exactly.
Robert, I want to sort of, as we come to an end, I mean, what is your wish, your hope, your goal for the book? I mean, what's the thing you want someone to take with them once they've read the book?
Well, I got great pleasure, in fact, out of writing the book, although I ceased to get so much pleasure after I'd proofread it for the 50th time. But I really did enjoy writing it because it just took me back through my career working in my own businesses, and I think that it's as I said in the introduction, I think the important thing is that well, I'll explain actually in a minute. But it really is aimed at not only enjoyment at anybody who takes an interest in business and technology, but also in learning lessons for business. I remember I had some relatives who I used to see quite regularly, and they used to say, "How's business going?" And I'd say, "It's not going very well." And then I'd see them, and they'd say, "Are you still having difficulty with your business?" And, you know, it's fantastic that we got through that. And I went, you know, on to create 3 businesses and now do my 4th business, which is Barefoot e-learning. And it's equally difficult, but I'm equally optimistic that it will turn out to be a great experience.
And you should stay there.
What can you say? So much. So I'd also love to get lots of good reviews because it makes me feel good. But I'm not a natural author. I just felt you know, compelled to do this because I think it should be entertaining for anybody. As you said, you know, you've had all similar experiences.
I think it resonates with people that have been in business for a bit, and it definitely resonated with me. Seriously, I thought, oh yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, some of the things they were quite funny that you had, but I think everyone goes through that. So yeah.
And I think you've got to just wake up every day and say that today's a new day, you know, and I'm totally positive. And I think another time I remember is when in my last business, we were in a almost if you'd gone to visit anybody and get some advice, they would have said you're in an impossible position. There's no way out. And we said, right, and we made a plan, and we acted on the plan, and the business turned around and became extremely profitable when you would have thought that it had it, So I think you always got to stay positive and persistent.
And you can't get drawn in, and you can't get attached to the outcome. You've got to stay, with what you've got. You've got to work with what you've got at the time, and you can't get attached to any kind of outcome. You've got to literally just keep at it, keep on keeping on.
Yeah, keep on keeping on. Yeah, I mean, we were offered a terribly small amount of money for the business at one stage. That's the last business. A pittance, really, and I was negative, and I thought, well, maybe I've got to take this, but it's like 1 year's salary, and I've been working this business for 12 years or whatever. And I sent the accounts off, and then they came back and they said, well, actually, the accounts are so bad that we don't want to pay you that money.
Yeah, I love that.
And then we turned into multi-million pound business. But the interesting thing also, we had this conversation on our last podcast, is what people do when they buy companies, and that's also in there. I mean, I think it's very difficult. Acquisitions are difficult. People's attitudes are not always positive, but as you say, you've just got to stick with it.
Thank you very, very much, Robin. I appreciate you. I appreciate your book, and I appreciate you sharing your stories with us.
Thank you.
If you don't mind staying online, I just want to say goodbye to the audience, and then we have a quick chat afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And do they know what it looks like? The bumpy road to success.
There you go. There's the bumpy road. The images. Yeah, it's on Amazon. I got myself a copy. Here it is, and I've gone through. You can even see my little post-it notes and all the little things. I loved it. It was great. So really, go out, buy it, read it, and I think give feedback. Give comments, give feedback. I'm waiting for the next the sequel to this, Robin.
That might not be so easy. I think, but I'll try.
Thank you. So let me say goodbye to. Thank you very much again. I appreciate that you could come on again today.
Thank you very much indeed. I appreciate it too.
So there we go. So thank you very much, Robin. I appreciate that, and thank you for everyone that joined us. I appreciate you following us as you do, and I certainly hope that you can go away after this episode to our audience. Take some of these lessons, whatever you can, and apply it, because it literally will shorten or reduce the risk. There's no need to fall into every pothole along the way if someone else has done it already.
I agree. I mean, that's what we should do. We should always learn from our mistakes or other people's mistakes that you share. Yeah. Definitely.
So thank you very much for everyone that joined us today. Please like and subscribe to the channel. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter. This is live, and it's real, and it's real, authentic stuff. And please go out and buy the book. It's well worth the read. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Robin, stay on the line.
I will.